Why did one baby's DNA test become one of the most watched celebrity mysteries in the world? After Anna Nicole Smith's sudden death, the spotlight did not disappear. Instead, it moved to her infant daughter, a child surrounded by fame, tragedy, money, and unanswered questions. Multiple men claimed a connection. The media followed every detail, and the world waited for one result that could change everything. When the DNA answer finally came, it revealed a truth no one could ignore. This was not just another celebrity headline. It was a story about a child, a father, a lost mother, and the one test that finally cut through the noise. But to understand why the DNA test mattered so much, we have to go back before the courtroom, before the cameras outside the Bahamas courthouse, and before the announcement that changed everything. Anna Nicole Smith was not born as Anna Nicole Smith. She was born Vicki Lynn Hogan, a girl from Texas, who later transformed herself into one of the most recognizable faces in American pop culture. Her rise was fast, dramatic, and deeply public. She became a model. She became a Playboy figure. She became the face of Guess. She became known for beauty, glamour, controversy, and a personality that seemed larger than life. But the public image was always complicated. Some people saw her as a blonde bombshell. Some saw her as a woman chasing fame. Some saw her as a victim of a media machine that turned her pain into entertainment. And some saw her as a mother trying to survive inside a world that never stopped watching. And by the time Dannielynn was born in September 2006 in the Bahamas, Anna's life was already under pressure. Her relationship history was complicated. Her inner circle was controversial. Her health and emotional state were often discussed publicly. And then came the tragedy that shattered everything. Just days after Dannielynn's birth, Anna's 20-year-old son, Danniel Smith, died while visiting his mother and newborn sister in the hospital. That loss changed the entire atmosphere around Anna. A birth that should have been filled with joy became tied to grief. One child had entered the world, another had left it. And Anna, already living under public pressure, was now facing the kind of pain no mother should ever carry. This is where the story becomes emotionally difficult. Because the paternity battle did not unfold in a quiet family setting. It unfolded under cameras. It unfolded across countries. It unfolded while Anna was grieving, while people around her argued, and while the public consumed every detail. Dannielynn's birth certificate listed Howard K. Stern, Anna's lawyer and companion, as the father. But photographer Larry Burkhead said he was the baby's biological father. He had been in a relationship with Anna and insisted that the child was his. For months, the question became one of the biggest celebrity mysteries in the world. Was Howard K. Stern the father? Was Larry Burkhead the father? Were there other claims? Why was everyone fighting so hard? And what would happen to the baby if Anna could no longer protect her? Then, in February 2007, the situation became even more tragic. Anna Nicole Smith was found dead in a Florida hotel room at age 39. The official cause was later ruled an accidental overdose involving prescription drugs. With Anna gone, the paternity question exploded. It was no longer only about a dispute between adults. It was about the future of a baby who had just lost her mother. Who would raise Dannielynn? Who would make decisions for her? Who would protect her from the circus surrounding her mother's name? Who would carry her away from the cameras? The world wanted an answer, but the world's attention was part of the problem. Every headline turned a child's identity into entertainment. Every interview made the case feel bigger. Every court appearance became a spectacle. But DNA testing was different. It did not care about who was more famous. It did not care who gave the more emotional interview. It did not care whose name appeared on paperwork. It compared genetic markers and asked one simple question. Who is the biological father? That is why the test became the most important moment in the entire case. For months, the public had opinions. Some believed Larry Burkhead. Some believed Howard K. Stern. Some were confused by the legal situation in the Bahamas. Some thought the truth would never be clean. But science was moving toward an answer. On April 10, 2007, the DNA results were revealed. Larry Burkhead was Dannielynn's biological father. Reports said the probability was extremely high, commonly reported as 999%. The mystery that had filled television screens was suddenly reduced to a scientific result. Burkhead stepped out of court and said the words that became part of the story. He had been saying he was the father, and the DNA test confirmed it. Howard K. Stern did not continue fighting him for custody. And with that, the direction of Dannielynn's life changed. This is the part people sometimes forget. The DNA test did not just answer a headline. It changed a childhood. It changed who would take the baby home. It changed the name she would carry. It changed the environment she would grow up in. It changed whether her life would remain inside the celebrity storm or move away from it. Larry Burkhead eventually raised Dannielynn mostly outside the center of Hollywood media attention, far from the chaos that had surrounded her earliest months. That may be the most important outcome of the entire case. A DNA test gave a child a father, and it gave the father legal clarity to step into her life. But the story still feels haunting because of how much tragedy surrounded that truth. Anna Nicole did not live to see the final DNA result announced. Daniel was already gone. Dannielynn was too young to understand any of it, and the adults around the case were left inside a legal and emotional storm. That is why this case remains one of the most unforgettable celebrity DNA stories ever reported. It was not just a paternity test. It was a test conducted in the shadow of death. It was a test that came after a mother and son had both died within months of the baby's birth. It was a test that turned science into the last stable thing in a story filled with grief. And it forced the world to see that DNA is not only about ancestry or crime. DNA can decide family. DNA can decide custody. DNA can decide identity. DNA can decide who gets to protect a child when everything else falls apart. The Anna Nicole Smith case became a media obsession, partly because her life had already been public for years. People had watched her transformation. They had watched her marriage to billionaire J. Howard Marshall become a national controversy. They had watched the legal battles over his estate. They had watched her reality show. They had watched her struggle, laugh, cry, and perform in front of cameras. By the time Dannielynn was born, Anna was already a symbol of fame's cruelty. The public knew the image, but they did not always see the person. And when the paternity dispute happened, the same machine that had built her celebrity turned her daughter's identity into another story. That is the uncomfortable truth behind the case. The world said it wanted the truth, but the world also treated the truth like entertainment. News trucks, court cameras, television panels, celebrity lawyers, interviews, rumors, speculation. Everything moved around a baby who could not speak for herself. This is why the DNA result mattered so deeply. It removed at least one layer of speculation. It gave the court a biological fact. It gave Larry Burkhead the confirmation he had been seeking. It gave Howard K. Stern a reason to step back from a custody fight. And it gave Dannielynn a clear answer to a question she would one day grow old enough to understand. Who is my father? For most children, that answer is part of ordinary life. For Dannielynn, it was announced to the world. That is the price of being born into celebrity chaos. Your private identity becomes public record. Your family story becomes a headline. Your first months become something strangers discuss for years. But there is another side to the story. Once the DNA result was known, the media storm slowly began to shift. Larry Burkhead became the father in the eyes of the court and the public. He took on the responsibility of raising Dannielynn. And over the years, he has often appeared with her only in limited public moments, especially events connected to the Kentucky Derby, where he and Anna first met. That recurring appearance became symbolic. It was not the same kind of fame Anna lived inside. It was controlled. It was occasional. It allowed Dannielynn to exist in public without being swallowed by the machine that consumed her mother. And that may be the quiet victory of the story. The DNA test did not bring Anna back. It did not undo Daniel's death. It did not erase the pain of 2006 and 2007. But it helped create a stable path for the child left behind. That is why the case is more than a scandal. It is a story about how science can protect the vulnerable when adults disagree. In a courtroom, a birth certificate can be challenged, a memory can be questioned, a relationship can be denied, but DNA gives the law something measurable. It gives probability, it gives comparison. It gives evidence that is much harder to manipulate. That does not mean DNA answers every emotional question. It does not tell us who loved Anna most. It does not tell us who treated her best. It does not explain every decision made before her death. It does not solve the grief. But it answered the question that mattered most for the child's future. Who was her biological father? And once that answer arrived, the rest of the case changed. This is why the title says, the DNA test revealed a truth no one expected. It was not because no one had predicted Larry Burkhead. Many people believed him. And the shock was that after months of confusion, the truth became undeniable. The drama collapsed into a result. The television debate became a number. The competing stories became one biological fact. Larry Burkhead was the father, but the emotional truth was larger. A baby who had become the center of a media storm now had a path toward a private life. That is the part worth remembering, because it is easy to tell this story as a scandal. It is harder and more important to tell it as a child protection story. Anna Nicole Smith was one of the most judged women of her era. Her body was judged. Her marriage was judged. Her intelligence was judged. Her grief was judged. Her addictions and health struggles were judged. Her motherhood was judged. Even after death, people fought over the meaning of her life. But DNA did something different. It did not judge Anna. It did not judge Larry. It did not judge Howard. It simply answered a biological question. And in a case where almost everything was emotional, that clarity mattered. Still, there's a reason the story remains unforgettable. The timing was almost unbearable. Dannielynn was born in September. Daniel died days later. Anna died in February. The DNA result came in April. Within 7 months, this baby's world had been shaped by birth, death, grief, court, media, and science. Most adults could not survive that level of chaos. She was an infant. That is why the story should be told with care. Behind every famous name is a real family. Behind every paternity headline is a child. Behind every DNA test is a future being decided. And behind Anna Nicole Smith's public image was a woman whose final months were filled with loss. The paternity case also changed how people understood celebrity legacy. Anna's life had already been connected to inheritance battles because of the long-running legal fight over J. Howard Marshall's fortune. So when Dannielynn's paternity became disputed, the public immediately connected it to money, custody, and control. People wondered whether the child might have claims connected to Anna's estate or broader legal matters. They wondered who would manage anything tied to her mother's name. They wondered who would make decisions for a baby connected to so much public attention. But beyond money, the most powerful inheritance was identity. Dannielynn needed more than a legal guardian. She needed an answer. And the DNA test gave that answer. That is the part that makes the case important for hidden DNA. It shows how one test can move through multiple layers of life: biology, law, media, family, custody, legacy, memory. The result was scientific, but the consequences were human. In the public imagination, DNA often feels cold. A swab, a lab, a report, a percentage. But in this case, DNA had a human face, a child's future, a father's claim, a mother's absence, a courtroom waiting for certainty. That is why the moment was so powerful. The DNA test did not need dramatic music. It did not need speculation. It simply arrived with the truth. And once it arrived, everyone had to respond. Larry Burkhead cried and celebrated. Howard K. Stern stepped away from fighting for custody. The media had its answer, and Dannielynn had a father legally and biologically recognized. But even then, the story was not finished. Because DNA can answer biology, but it cannot repair grief. It cannot give a child the mother she lost. It cannot undo the loss of Daniel. It cannot erase the footage, headlines, jokes, and public cruelty that shaped Anna's image. It cannot make the past gentle. It can only provide clarity. And sometimes clarity is the first step away from chaos. Years later, the image many people remember is not only Anna Nicole Smith on magazine covers. It is Larry and Dannielynn appearing together, often smiling, often dressed carefully for the Kentucky Derby. Those appearances remind people that the baby at the center of the storm grew up. She became more than a headline. She became a person with a life beyond the legal battle. That matters. Because the worst thing celebrity culture does is freeze people at their most painful moment. Anna is often frozen in controversy. Daniel is frozen in tragedy. Dannielynn could have been frozen as the baby in the paternity case, but life continued. And the DNA result helped make that possible. This is where the story turns from shocking to meaningful. The test was not just about proving a man right. It was about moving a child out of uncertainty. It was about replacing rumor with evidence. It was about giving the court a path forward. And it was about showing that even in the ugliest media storm, truth can still be found. But we should also ask the uncomfortable question: why did the world become so obsessed? Was it because people cared about the child? Or because Anna Nicole Smith had already been turned into a spectacle? The answer may be both. Many people genuinely wanted Dannielynn to be safe, but many others watched the case like entertainment. That is the dark side of celebrity DNA stories. They involve real people, but the public consumes them like mystery shows. This is why a respectful telling matters. The point is not to mock Anna. The point is not to sensationalize a baby. The point is to understand how DNA became the only stable evidence in one of the most unstable celebrity stories of that decade. And when we look at the case from that angle, it becomes much deeper. Anna Nicole Smith's baby DNA test revealed more than a father. It revealed how fragile identity can become when fame, death, and law collide. It revealed how quickly a child can become the center of adult battles. It revealed how celebrity culture can turn private pain into public property. And it revealed how science can step in when everyone else is fighting over the story. There is a heartbreaking irony in the fact that Anna Nicole Smith spent so much of her life being misunderstood by the public. People argued about who she was. Was she a gold digger? Was she a victim? Was she smarter than people believed? Was she lost? Was she performing a character? Even now, documentaries and interviews keep trying to answer those questions. But the DNA test around her daughter was different. It was not about interpretation. It was not about image. It was not about public opinion. It was a fact. And maybe that is why it felt so powerful in a story full of confusion. After years of Anna being discussed through rumors and narratives, one part of her daughter's story was finally clear. Larry Birkhead was her father. That clarity gave Dannielynn something her mother rarely received from the public. A simple truth. The lesson of the case is not that DNA solves everything. It does not. But DNA can protect truth when truth is under attack. It can protect children from endless uncertainty. It can protect courts from relying only on competing claims. It can protect family identity from being decided by media pressure. And in Anna Nicole Smith's case, it helped close one of the most painful open questions left after her death. The story began with glamour. It moved through grief. It exploded into legal chaos. And it ended with a DNA result that changed a child's life. That is why people still remember it. Not because it was just another celebrity scandal, but because behind the scandal was a baby who needed the truth. And when the truth came, it came through science. So when we hear the phrase Anna Nicole Smith's baby DNA test, we should remember what it really means. It means a child born into the loudest room in the world was finally given one clear answer. It means a father who fought publicly was confirmed by evidence. It means a custody battle moved toward resolution. It means a media storm began to lose its power over the most important question. And it means that somewhere inside the chaos of fame, DNA quietly did what the cameras could not. It told the truth. Anna Nicole Smith's life is still debated. Her choices are still analyzed. Her pain is still revisited. Her image is still used to talk about beauty, fame, addiction, grief, and exploitation. But her daughter's paternity is not a mystery anymore. The DNA test answered it, and that answer changed everything. Because in the end, the biggest truth was not about a headline. It was about a little girl. A little girl who lost her mother before she could remember her voice. A little girl whose father had to prove the truth in front of the world. A little girl who became the center of a case she never asked to enter. And a little girl whose future was shaped by a few genetic markers on a lab report. That is the hidden power of DNA. It can take the loudest celebrity mystery and reduce it to the one answer that matters. Not gossip, not rumor, not television debate, truth. And in this case, that truth gave Dannielynn Birkhead something no headline could give her. A father, a name, a path forward, and a chance to grow beyond the tragedy that surrounded her birth. There's another reason this case stayed in public memory. It happened at a time when celebrity television and online gossip were becoming more aggressive. Anna Nicole Smith had already been edited, mocked, packaged, and sold as entertainment. Her daughter's paternity case arrived inside that same machine. The world wanted a result, but it also wanted drama. That made the DNA test feel like the final episode of a story that should never have been treated like a show. Yet the result had a life beyond entertainment. It created legal clarity for a child who needed stability. It meant decisions could move away from speculation and toward guardianship. It meant the adults no longer had to fight over the central biological fact. And it allowed Dannielynn to grow with a father who had been confirmed not by publicity, but by evidence. That is what makes the story powerful for a DNA-focused channel. It is not only about fame, it is about how science can become the quiet center of a very loud case. When everyone is talking, DNA does not argue. It compares, it calculates, it answers. And in this case, the answer helped a child step out of one of the most intense media storms of her time.